Yes, doctor.
Okay, so now we'll start our lecture and just another question. Can you see my screen or not?
Yes, doctor. We can see it.
Okay, thank you very much. Okay, starting with to be more accurate, okay, today's lecture is a little bit complicated and it needs much focus of you. So we will try together to understand it very well and to make it easier to each of one of us, okay? So anything that is not clear, anything that needs to be um, reread again, re-explained again, just let me know, okay? And feel free and do not hesitate it at all. Is that clear?
Yes,
Clear.
clear.
Okay, good. So first we'll start with the introduction. I'll start to read the first few paragraphs and later on you will help me to read with me, okay? The dominant genre in the world of literature, the novel, is actually a relatively young form of imaginative writing. Only about 250 years ago, old in England, and embattled from the start, its rise to preeminence has been striking. After sparse beginnings in 17th century England, novels grew potentially in production by the 18th century, and in the 19th century became the primary form of popular entertainment. Elizabethan literature provides a starting point for identifying prototypes of the novel in England. Although not widespread, works of prose fiction were not uncommon during this period. Well, the first thing to start with is it is a relatively new genre. It is not new 100%, but a relatively new genre, which is go back to almost 250 years or 300 years ago. It appeared in its basic shape of a novel. Why do we say a basic shape? Because later on we will see the development happened to the novel later on. But as a basic, true English novel, it appeared within the emergence of the 17th century, and later on in the 18th and 19th century, it was the prominent genre of entertainment. First of all, we have two main factors that helped the novel to be as it is or as we know it today. يعني إحنا من لا شيء صار عندنا رواية. أوكي، لابد من وجود العديد من الأسباب أو على الأقل دواعي لظهور الرواية أو أشياء مساعدة وعلى أي أساس انبنت هذا الرواية. First of all, we have the Elizabethan literature. Okay, الأدب في العصر الإليزابيثي. What's wrong with it? It provided a starting point for identifying prototypes of the novel in England. Widespread works of prose fiction were not uncommon during this period. Possibly the best known was Sir Philip Sidney's Arcadia, a romance published posthumously in 1590. Well, the first thing to start with is what do we mean by a romance? A romance, in its basic, it is any kind of prose or verse that was basically or based on glorifying the chivalric stories. Who knows what does it mean, a chivalric? مين يعطيني معنى chivalric? Are you following me? Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, doctor. Are you?
Okay, Zahra. So, what do we mean by chivalric? Who knows?
الفروسية.
Okay, فروسية. Thank you very much. In its basic terms, it refers all the glories of knights. Okay, it glorifies the chivalric stories of knights, their courtly love, their courage, their manners, their morals. So it is basically based on sensations, okay? But the moral sensations more than um, the physical love, okay? It is based on the courtly love instead of the physical love. So it is 100% related to sensations, and it was published after that in 1590, which the one that we are talking about is Arcadia by Sir Philip Sidney. Another depth goes back to the Elizabethan drama. هسه خلصنا من الأدب الإليزابيثي بصورة عامة، نتحول إلى المسرح الإليزابيثي. شنو بيه؟ The Elizabethan drama, starting from Shakespeare, the age of Shakespeare, till the dramatist Afra Bain and later on John Bunyan, both of them did their best to give us the novel we know today. The thing is that we cannot consider them as the first true English novel. I want you to focus on this phrase, first true English novel. Once again, the first true English novel. Hi, first true English novel, we will focus on it later on. But for the time being, we are saying we've got the roots of the English novel starting from, and actually it goes to Afra Bain's work, the dramatist Afra Bain. Her 1688 Orinoco, or the Royal Slave, typified the early English novel. It features a sensationalistic plot that borrowed freely from continental literature. The continental literature we are focusing on is the one we are saying that it is um, the Romans, okay? Um, Concurrent with Bain's career was that of another author's Pilgrim's Progress, which is we can call him English novelist. His name is John Bunyan. Actually, his work, Religious Pilgrim's Progress, first published in 1678, became one of the books found in nearly every English household. هسه نرجع من جديد، عندنا أهم عملين اللي هم كانوا البداية أو الأساس لانطلاق الرواية الإنجليزية تحديدا، هو أعمال أفرا بين، الكاتبة المسرحية أفرا بين وليست روائية. هذه نقطة مهمة جدا. وعملها الأدبي Orinoco or the Royal Slave is the first prominent feature of the novel. The another one is John Bunyan and his work, The Pilgrim's Progress. Actually, it is a religious work, but even though it was widespread in almost every household in England. هدول أول كتب انتشرت. المهم إنه تعرفون إنه أفرا بين لما كانت تكتب to gain money, okay? The question is, what is the difference between a play and a novel?
The novel is a written text, but
Okay,
the play is also a written text but performs on the stage.
excellent, Zainab. Thank you very much.
Welcome.
Um, um, as long as it is performed on the stage, so it needs audience, right? And the audience must pay much money in order to attend that performance. But instead of all of these actions, we can buy a book, right? So Afra Bain did her best in order to reach this point. She was writing for gaining money, and she was depending on sensations on the first place. So we cannot consider it as the first true English novel, but actually it was the ABC of the English novel, simply because it was written in English, and in addition to John Bunyan. In the second half of the 17th century, the novel genre developed many of the traits that characterize it in modern form, rejecting the sensationalism of Bain and other early popular novelists built on the realism of Bunyan's work. Now, pay attention. Three of the foremost novelists of this era are Daniel Defoe, Henry Fielding, and Samuel Richardson. These are the most affecting three. Who are they? Daniel Defoe, Henry Fielding, and Samuel Richardson. Look, we've said in the first half of the 17th century we have Bunyan and Afra Bain, but we did take the most important things of their works, which is we have to detach sensations from the text and focusing on realism instead. Realism is one of the most important factors that we are going to focus on, and actually it is going to be the one and only important factor that illuminates the 18th century English novel. Are you following me?
Yes, doctor.
Good.
Yes.
Defoe's name, more than that of any other English writer, is credited within the emergence of the true English novel. Now, pay attention. True English novel. Once again, true English novel. قبل شوية قلت لكم ركزوا على هاي المفردة لأنه راح نركز عليها بعدين هواي، أو هذه الجملة لأنه راح نركز عليها هواي. قلنا بين وبنيان اثنيناتهم كان لهم دور أساسي بالرواية مال رواية القرن الثامن عشر، لكنها لا ما نقدر نعتبرها إنه الفيرست ترو إنجليش نوفل، أول رواية إنجليزية حقيقية. بالمناسبة إحنا نقول إنجليزية لأنه قبل اللغة الإنجليزية كان أكو العديد من المحاولات، وأنا جاي أتحدث تحديدا عن القرن الثامن عشر، 17 18، بمعنى قبل هذه الفترة كان أكو العديد من المحاولات لكتابة روايات أخرى، لا سيما أنه هي مو شرط باللغة الإنجليزية، وأهمها رواية دون كوختي للأديب الإسباني ميغيل. أوكي، هذه الرواية هي تعتبر العديد من النقاد يعتبروها أول رواية أوروبية حديثة. طيب، لكن كإنجليزية إحنا نتحدث عن Robinson Crusoe, Defoe's Robinson Crusoe, The Adventures of Robinson Crusoe. It is highlighted, or it is credited as the first true English novel. Is that clear?
Clear, doctor.
Yes,
Do
doctor.
I need to repeat it? أحد يحتاج أعيدها؟
No, doctor, is clear.
Okay. And the work of these three writers, their realism and drama of individual consciousness that we must associate with the novel took precedence over external drama and other motifs of continental romance. Contemporary critics approved of these elements as supposedly native to England in other genres, especially in history, biography, and religious prose works. So, what makes these works important? They are focusing on realism and the individual's consciousness. يعتمدون على الواقعية وعلى وعي الأشخاص أكثر مما يهتمون بالدراما والسensation والexternal dramatic features. أوكي، يعني بدل ما إنه أخلق نار وأجواء دراماتيكية زيادة عن اللزوم، أركز على الواقعية وأركز على وعي الأشخاص وشون راح يحاولون إنه try to interact with these events. Okay? Now I want someone of you to read. Who will start reading?
May I read?
Yes, of course. Go ahead.
Okay. From a number?
Yes.
Okay.
Zainab Sajjad. Yes, yes, Zainab.
A number of profound social and economic changes affecting British culture from the Renaissance through the
Yes.
18th century brought the novel quickly into popular prominence.
Yes.
The proudest of these were probably the advances in the technology of printing in the 16th and 17th centuries, which made written text once the province of the elite available to a growing population of readers. May I continue?
Excellent. Yes, please. Concurrent
changes in modes of distribution and
yes.
literacy
Yes.
rates brought ever increasing numbers of books and pamphlets
Yes.
to population traditionally
Populations.
excluded from all but the most rudimentary education, especially working class men and women of all classes, as the circulation of printed material transformed, so did its economics, shifting
Yes.
away from the patronage system
Yes.
characteristic of the
Yeah.
Renaissance.
Okay, Zainab. The characteristics of the Renaissance. Okay.
During which a
Yeah.
nation's nobility
Yes.
supported authors whose works reinforced
The values of the ruling classes.
as
Yes.
the patronage system broke down through the 17th and 18th centuries. Authors became free against the agents
free
in the
agents. Yes.
literary
marketplace.
Dependent on popular sales for their success and sustenance, and thus reflecting more and more of the values of predominantly middle class readership.
Okay, thank you very much, Zainab. Okay, the two important ideas here we have to focus on is that the main reason that allowed the spread of the English novel is that the first thing is the advances in technology of printing in the 16th and 17th century, which made written text once of the province of the elite available to a growing population of readers. شنو يعني؟ لأول مرة يتمكن القراء من إنه الكتب كانت حصرا لأنه غالية ولأنه ماكو printing ماكو طباعة، فالكتب جدا غالية وما تتحصل بس الطبقات العليا الرويال classes. Okay, so it was too hard for normal people to buy them, but by the advances of technology and the emergence of printing machines, now things are easier and the books are not so expensive anymore, so people could buy them. Okay, the other thing is that before the printing machines appeared, and as long as the books were exclusively for the royals and so expensive so the normal people cannot buy them, the royal people themselves were providing the writers by money. يعني أنا أنطي الكاتب حتى يكتب عني. Okay? So what would he do? He would praise me more and more because I'm the one who gives him money. But by the expansion of printing machines and the this industrial movement, now things much better. So instead of taking money from those royal people, now taking money from the feedback of selling books. نبيع الكتب، ناخذ فلوس، أصحاب المكاتب ينطون هاي الفلوس للكتاب حتى يكتبون عن منو؟ ما يكتبون عن الرويالز مثل قبل لأن هم يزودوهم بالأموال، لا، يكتبون عن الناس اللي مثلهم، عن الأوردينري بيبل. وهذا الشيء هو المين ايديا برواية القرن الثامن عشر، والهدف الأساسي برواية القرن الثامن عشر إنه القراء يقرون عن شخصيات مثلهم، نفس أسمائهم، نفس المستوى المعيشي، نفس الظروف، نفس الأماكن، الشخصيات نفسها. يعني قبل هذه الفترة، قبل ال 18th century، الشخصيات most of them were ideal, okay, or kings, princes, and so on and so forth, or even imaginary heroes like a man with two heads, or a body of a horse and a head of a man, and so on and so forth. So from now on, no, things are totally different. Things now based on people's needs, people's way to read, people's way to interact with the text itself, because now they can read by themselves. Is that clear?
Yes, clear, Doctor.
What about the others? Ayat Saleh, are you following us?
Yes.
Ayat?
Yes.
Okay, can you proceed in reading for us, please? Ayat Saleh, are you there? استبرق سامي. استبرق سامي. اوكي، أزهر عطا. أزهر عطا. إسراء هاني.
Yes, I'm here.
Okay, Isra, read it for us, please.
The demand, the demand for reading material allowed a greatly expanded pool of writers to make a living from largely ephemeral poetry and fiction. This new material changed in how literature was perceived, and consequent sent shockwaves of alarm throughout more conservative part of English culture and
Okay, okay. Thank you, Isra. Thank you. Adyan Najm, are you there? Adyan? أروى عماد.
Yes.
Yes, Arwa, read for us, please. The same paragraph again.
ستك ممكن تراجعينه على الصفحة؟
نعم؟ موجود عندكم.
بس ما جاي حمل عندي
Okay, okay, no
بالكلاس.
problem. Okay.
dramas for reading material around
A great expanded pool. Okay, Arwa, thank you. But can you hear me very well? Because I think the internet connection is too bad near you. Is that correct? أروى سمعيني؟ أوكي، أزهار عقيل. أزهار عقيل.
نعم دكتورة.
أوكي، أسامة ضياء.
دكتورة.
تمام. أسماء كاظم.
نعم دكتورة.
أسماء قتيبة.
نعم دكتورة.
أضواء باسم.
نعم دكتورة موجودة.
آلاء منير.
دكتورة.
أم البنين.
نعم دكتورة.
أماني عذبي.
نعم دكتورة.
آية.
نعم دكتورة.
إيمان محمد.
نعم دكتورة.
آية علي.
يس.
بتول محمد.
نعم دكتورة.
بدور ستار.
نعم دكتورة.
دكتورة استبرق سامي وياك، ما انفتح المايك عندي من الساعة.
استبرق سامي. استبرق سجلت غياب.
ست ما انفتح عندي المايك.
أوكي. بنين حميد.
نعم دكتورة.
بنين فاضل.
نعم دكتورة.
العفو دكتورة، أنا هم صحت باسمي وما
تبارك
قدرت أفتح
أسعد.
المايك.
نعم دكتورة.
ليش ما قدرتوا تفتحون المايك؟ أنتم موعدكم محاضرة؟ Anyway, we will proceed in within the lecture and later on we will proceed in taking the attendance. أنا ما تمشي علي فكرة إنه أنتوا أوكي تسوون join وبعدين توقفون النقال وما أدرون تروحون. هي محاضرة so you are obliged to attend it. Yes, who would read?
May I, Doctor?
Yes, of course. You
Can
may.
I, Doctor?
Yes, of course. The first one who started reading.
دكتورة بس العفو، إذا ممكن تعرضين المادة على الشاشة لأن ما عندي الملف.
Okay, أضواء. Just a minute. I didn't recognize who raised his hand. منو اللي جاي يرفع ايده؟ اوكي؟ لأنه لما أفتح السكرين شوت لما أسوي سكرينينج فأنا ما أقدر أشوف هنا الميت. اوكي؟ So it's preferable to talk instead of raising your hands or talking in chat or chatting. اوكي؟ يعني لما نسوي sharing للسكرين حاولوا تحجون بدل ما انه تكتبون بالشات او تسوون raising hand لانه ما اشوفه. تمام؟ انطوني اسماءكم من تحجون and go on. It's okay. Yes. Who started? أضواء?
Yes,
Can
Doctor.
I? No? Yes.
Okay.
أضواء and the other girl later on. Start from the demand for reading, please.
Yes, Doctor. The demand for reading material allowed a greatly expanded pool of writers to make a living from literary, ephemeral poetry, and fiction. This monumental change in how literature was produced and consumed sent shockwaves of alarm that more conveyed scatters of English culture at the beginning of the 18th century. A literary upper-class male contingent were reluctant to see any change in the literary status until a mounted and aggressive and intentional campaign attacks on the new genre tended to identify it with its roots in French romance.
Okay, thank you very much, Adwa. Thank you. Okay, the other girl who wanted to read?
Cool. Can I?
Yes, of course. What's your name?
Zainab. Zainab
Zainab.
Mahdi.
Yes, Zainab. Please
Yes.
reread the same paragraph. A largely upper class male contingent. Yes.
Okay. A largely upper class male Canadian
Contingent. Yes.
Contingent.
Yes.
Reluctant.
Yes.
To see any change in the literary state that is mounted an aggressive
anti-novel campaign.
Yes. It tracks on the new genre. Yes. Attacks on the new genre tended to identify it with its roots in French romance, derided as
a sensationalistic
sensationalized, yes,
yes,
antithetical to English values, antithetical to English values.
Yes.
The early target of these attacks were those writers, including Pym,
yes.
Elza
Haywood,
and Deliver
Merle, who had produced original English prose romances based on the conventions of the French style. Okay? Let me read.
Yes, okay.
Thank you, Zainab Mahdi. Thank
Okay.
you. At the same time, however, more women in particular were writing novels that made a display of decorum and piety, often reacting to detractors who charged that sensationalistic tales of adventure and sexual endangerment had the potential to corrupt adult female readers and the youth of both sexes. The outcome of this campaign was not the demise of the novel, but the selective legitimation of novels that displayed certain distinctly non-romantic traits. These traits became the guidelines according to which the novel as a genre developed and was valued. هاي الباراجراف تتكلم عن نقطة جدا أساسية، أنه كان هناك العديد من المعارضين لظهور هذه الرواية. طبعا عدة أسباب، وأكو فريق هو أو اسمهم الأنتي نوفل كامبين، اللي هم كانوا نخبة أو مجموعة فريق ضد الرواية أو ضد ظهور الرواية، وهم تحديدا من الأبر كلاس ميل، أوكي، رجال من الطبقة العليا. ما رادوا أي تغيير بالليتراري ستيتس كيو، ما رادوا أي نوع من الجانرز الجديدة اللي تظهر. أنطوا العديد من الأسباب. الأول إنه هاي الرواية هي تعتمد على الفرنش رومانس، أوكي؟ قبل شوية قلنا الرومانس هي chivalric story, but the romance chivalric stories were based on sensations, okay? رجعوا مرة ثانية, well, it affects the sensation of people. It is not qualified within the English values. طبعا ذاك الوقت كان المجتمع الإنجليزي محافظ جدا، بالإضافة إلى أنه كان تحت وصاية الكنيسة، فالمشاعر وال own perspectives were kind of neglected and not allowed to be appear. But within the emergence of the novel, things are tended to be changed. How is that? They try to attack the decorum and piety of sensations, and they refuse the idea that women are writing. Why is that? Because they believed or they accused women by their soft writings, they would soft the hearts of men. So in this case, they would build a generation that has different values than the others, or has a soft and kind-hearted instead of chivalric men. And actually, all of these were false accuses because it is not true. Okay. نتيجة هذا الاعتراف كان instead of the demise of the novel بدل ما تنطمس الرواية بالعكس انطوها الشرعية بتقويم أفضل. These traits became the guidelines according to which the novel as a genre developed and was valued. واضحة هاي النقطة؟ أكو أحد ما فهمها يحتاج أعيدها من جديد؟
No, it's clear.
البقية يحتاج أشرحها بالعربي؟
لا دكتور واضح.
No, it is clear.
Okay. Most venerated by this tradition are three leading 18th century male novelists, Defoe, Richardson, and Fielding. Defoe, Richardson, and Fielding. Modern students of the novel are often unaware of the tumultuous controversy that attended its first steps at the end of the 17th century. For the most part, feminist scholars have been responsible for generating the recovery of the novel's earliest roots and for opening up discussion of its cultural value in its many different forms. طبعا هاي مو مهمة بقدر ما إنه أهم شيء نركز عليها إنه Defoe, Richardson, and Fielding the most important writers of the 18th century. اللي بعدها حسب رأي الكاتب إنه طبعا بالمناسبة نركز على فقرة إنه هذه الرواية اللي جاي نتحدث عنها هي الرواية الحديثة وليست الرواية الحداثوية. الرواية الحديثة هي رواية القرن الثامن عشر. رواية الحداثوية هي رواية القرن العشرين والواحد وعشرين. تمام؟ الحديثة 18th century. Modernist the 20th century. فإحنا جاي نتحدث عن الرواية الحديثة وليست الرواية الحداثوية. هذه الرواية الحديثة يقول إنه كان الهدف الأكبر أو الدور الأكبر هو للفيمينيست المداعيات بحقوق المرأة، كان لهم الفضل الأكبر باستعادة هذه الروت، إنه الناس شلون قدروا يعرفون حقيقة أصول ظهور الرواية. طبعا والسبب جدا واضح، إنه أول الكتاب كانوا نساء من ضمنهم آفرا بين وهايوود وغيرها، فحتى يبرزون دورهم وأهميتهم بالمجتمع فكان إلى دور أساسي في معرفة تاريخ أصول ظهور الرواية. Okay? The most important thing to focus on is realism on the novel form. I told you before, the 18th century novel is 100% focusing on the idea of realism and the individual's consciousness. So, what do we mean by the realism and the individual's consciousness? Now we will try to focus on and highlight it. Okay? Who's going to read?
May I?
May I?
May I?
Okay. The first one who started to say may I was
Anna.
Okay, who are you?
Haidar Amr.
Yes, Haidar.
The literary form of novel appeared in the 18th century among a group of writers who had very little in common. Defoe, Richardson, and Fielding, however, there must have been something prevalent in that era which led them to create this new form. The novel differs from previous work in that it's characterized by realism. Realism
Okay, just a second, please. In case you have your paper copies, okay, I want you to highlight the following. The novel differs from previous works in that it is characterized by realism. Okay? Realism isn't to be defined as the opposite of idealism. Yes, Haidar, proceed in.
Realism isn't to be defined as the opposite of idealism. Realism
Yes.
is the attempt at portrayal of all aspects of human experience.
Yes.
Realism lies in the manner in which life is represented. The novel
Good.
is marked by the attempt to view life scientifically. The modern idea of realism is that which we perceive via our senses.
Thanks a lot.
And
Thank you very much. So the most
I'm
important idea is that realism is that which we perceive via our senses. Okay. Once again, I want you to highlight the whole paragraph, and I want you to focus on the idea that realism isn't to be defined as the opposite of idealism. اوكي راح نشرح شويه بالعربي. هنا واقعيه وهنا البرفكشن الكمال. اوكي الواقعيه ليست كمضاد او العكس للكمال او لفكره الكمال او فكره الافضل كل شيء، لكن المعنى الحديث او المعنى الاصح والاقرب انه the way we interact with the surrounding. اوكي الطريقه اللي احنا نعيش بيها والطريقه اللي احنا نتعايش ويا الحياه. ففكره الرياليزم اللي ظهرت عندنا بالقرن الثامن عشر تحاول بكل طريقه انه تعكس حياه الانسان الطبيعي، حياه الانسان العادي، حياه الانسان لا هو رويال ولا هو supernatural ولا هو semi god ولا هو god ولا غيره. كل الموضوع انه هو ordinary man. okay it tries to perceive the life through his senses. يعني شلون هذا الشخصية شلون يشوف الحياة، شلون يشعر بيها، بهذه الطريقة احنا راح نقرأ هذا الإنسان العادي وطريقة استفهامه للحياة، وليس شخص عنده قوة خارقة أو إله أو شبه إله نصف إله وإلى آخره من الشخصيات اللي كانت قبل الرواية الحديثة موجودة. Okay? Yes, Haidar, proceed please.
in the Middle Ages, it was universal idea which we thought to be true. Descartes, however, hypothesized the reality is perceived by the individual and not attached to previous ideas on reality. The development of
once again, please highlight it. Okay. Descartes, however, hypothesized that reality is perceived by the individual and it is not attached to previous ideas on reality. شنو راح نسوي؟ بالاعتماد على فكرة ديكارت راح نفصل detach، راح نفصل الماضي عن الحاضر. مثل ما الإنسان أنا مود يفهم الرياليتي إنه ما إلها علاقة بالماضي، بنفس الطريقة راح نفصل الرواية الحديثة عن الأدب اللي قبلها، فراح نظهر بمنظور جديد أو بنطاق جديد. Yes, Haidar, proceed.
The development of the novel reflects this change in philosophy. This notion allowed for novels to detach themselves of history and of the conventions of a literary genre and create something quote-unquote novel. The novel has thus few conventions which the literary critic may use to analyze the novel.
Excellent. So as I've already told you, based on the idea of the philosopher Descartes, that is reality should be detached from history or previous ideas. So depending on this philosophical idea, the novelists did their best to detach the novel from history and all the other previous genres to produce what we call it today the new novel. Okay? Yes, Haidar.
I'm reading from the screen.
Okay.
مو مشكلة.
In addition, the novel does not utilize traditional plots.
In addition, the novel does not utilize traditional plot as it did works of all earlier genres. Instead, they are rather more original. This also contributed to the realism of the novel, along with the changing of the plot. Characters had to become unique as well as situations within the plot.
Good.
Abstractions are ill-tailored for entertainment, and that is the purpose of the novel. Thus, the novel embodies the movement of literature away from the abstract. In addition, the prevalence of realism meant that the setting of the novel and the characterizations become integral.
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you, Haider. So, once again, in addition, the novel doesn't utilize traditional plots as did works of all earlier genres. Instead, they are rather more original. هسه خلصنا من فكرة ال detaching, okay, or touching between the past and present. سوينا detach، فصلنا الحاضر عن الماضي، فصلنا الرواية عن اللي قبلها. رقم 2، شنو التغيير اللي موجود بيها؟ Doesn't utilize traditional plots as did works of all earlier genres. Instead, they are rather more original. Okay, البلوت، الحبكة أو القصص اللي بالرواية مختلفة تماما عن اللي قبلها. قبل شوية ذكرنا شلون إنه صارت ال circumstances are real for ordinary people. Okay, the characters are real, the actions, the stories, the intentions, the goals of the heroes of these novels are all new or kind of new to the readers, because before that they were only reading about the hypothetical goals, okay, or things that are unable to be true. This also contributed to the realism of the novel. Along with the changing of the plot, characters had to become unique as well as situations within the plot. بالتأكيد طالما أنه البلوت تغيرت، الكاركترز والsituations والactions كلها تتغير تباعا. تمام؟ Abstractions are ill-tailored for entertainment, and that is the purpose of the novel. Thus, the novel embodies the movement of literature away from the abstract. In addition, the prevalence of realism meant that the setting of the novel and characterization became integral. Once again, highlight the prevalence of realism meant that setting of the novel and characterization became integral, which means that first of all, abstractions are ill-tailored, which means that we are reading things that are based on concrete, touchable things, okay? Edible things, watchable things, not abstracted, not visionary things, not based on imagination anymore, okay? Look, أول الشغلة المهمة اللي لازم تفصلونها إنه أوكي هي imaginary، القصة imaginary or based on imagination, but all the characters, all the actions, all the circumstances, all the situations are not imaginary, which means that they are not a fantasy, but they are real. If you as a person were instead of the hero, you can interact with these things, okay? You are able to live the same life that the hero lives. واضحة هاي النقطة؟ إنه إحنا جاي نقول هي صحيح القصة هي مبنية على الخيال، لكن الشخوص والأحداث والأماكن والقصة بحد ذاتها هي مو خيالية بمعنى إنه البطل مالتنا مو ينفث نار مثلا، ولا إنه هو نصف إله فعنده قوى خارقة، ولا إنه جسد حيوان ورأس إنسان، فمثلا يكون عنده سرعة خارقة وإلى آخره. بمعنى أنه أنت كشخص إذا صرت بمكان البطل راح تقدر تعيش نفس حياتك. القصة okay based on imagination but the content is not imaginary. I hope this idea is clear for you. Anyway, philosophers began to ascribe importance to personal identity. Previously, in literature, characters were named after universal characters they stood for. In the novel, characters were given realistic names. Another feature is that in the novel, the characters were given realistic names. Locke saw people's history as aiding in their self-definition. This idea is reflected in the novel, where many times in characters' history and its exploration is the very topic of the novel. Instead of abstract events, events are now rooted in time and space and pertain to specific characters. اللي حكيناه قبل شوية جاي نرجع ننطيه بالتفصيل من جديد. The novel characters were given realistic names, okay, and instead of abstract events, events are now rooted in time and space and pertain to specific characters. Are you following me?
Yes. Yes, doctor.
Good. Characters change over time and do not adhere to static moral values. However, the interest in realism necessitates a much more careful portrayal of time in the narrative. There is no longer in the novel a time constraint in which the plot must take place. Previously, there was no interest in realistic monumenti of daily life. In the novel, there is. Now, events such as love stories may be allowed to develop in realistic time. There is an actual time scheme to the story. The same pertains to space. The novel, in conclusion, seeks to convey an authentic account of the actual experiences of individuals. Highlight it, please. The novel, in conclusion, seeks to convey an authentic account of the actual experiences of individuals. The last thing to mention is that the language of the novel reflects the realism inherent in the genre. لما نرجع للنقاط اللي قلناها مسبقا, realism isn't to be identified as the opposite of idealism, but instead it perceives the senses. Okay. Number two, the novel is detached from. This is number one. This is number two. The novel is detached from history. Okay, so now all the events are based on reality and on new imaginary things. Number three, it doesn't. The novel doesn't utilize traditional plots, and now we are depending on original ones. Number four, realism. Realism is based on the settings and characterization of the novel are now changed as well, not before. Okay, قلنا قبل شوية الشخصيات شنو طبيعتها. رقم 5, the novel characters were given realistic names. الأسماء, إنه حتى الأسماء صارت أسماء عادية, مو أسماء مثل قبل. إذا أريد أنطي اسم شخصية لبطل ما, فأنا أسميه تبعا لشخصية معروفة أو شخصية بالتاريخ موجودة أنه هي قوية, فعلى هذا الأساس أنا أسميها. أوكي, هذا الشيء اختفى, صارت الأسماء عادية, ممكن جون, ممكن روبنسون, ممكن سام, اللي هم names of ordinary people. Okay. Number 6, instead of the abstract events, events are now rooted in time and space and pertain to specific characters. Number 7, and actually it is important thing, that is the narrative from now on isn't to just a narrative, which means that مو هي حشو قصة إنه أخلي بيها أحداث وانتهى الموضوع. No. Now we have to be stick to the place and time. Okay. The duration of the novel, which we've called before the settings, if you remember, place, time, and the duration. Now the settings of the novel are very important, and the writer has to stick to it. Not the same way as before. Before the modern novel, they were not attached to any specific rules. Okay, the time, the place, the situation, the duration, all of them are mixed in a very a random way. But for the novel, things are totally changed. For the novel, they have to be authentic, okay, to show the experience, the actual experiences of the individual. حتى نرجع مرة ثانية نعيد ونكرر إنه الهدف من تكون authentic، الهدف من عندها إنه visualizing the actual experiences of the individual. إنه لما تكون لهاي الدرجة بيها authentic. شو يعني authentic بالعربي؟
أصيلة.
موثوقة. أوكي. أصيلة أو موثوقة. أوكي. حتى تكون لهاي الدرجة موثقة، إنه الهدف من عندها حتى ال actual experience، التجربة الواقعية أو التجربة بحد ذاتها، ما الشخص، أي شخص ثاني ممكن يقراها وممكن يكون بدل الشخصية الرئيسية بهذه الرواية. النقطة الأخيرة اللي راح نركز عليها اللي هي the language of the novel reflects the realism inherent in the genre. قرينا إحنا بالمحاضرة اللي فاتت، قرينا لاين أو لاينين فقط من رواية روبنسون كروسو، وإذا مو كلنا 100%، ف90 إلى 95% من عندنا فهمنا كل كلمة موجودة بالنص أو بالباراجرافات اللي قريناها على الأقل. والسبب إنه اللانجوج اختلفت. The language of the 18th century novel differs from the previous Old English, and specifically the Shakespearean language, for example. لما هسه تجيبون نص الشكسبير وتخلون النص مالت روبنسون قدامكم، راح تشوفون الفرق الشاسع بين اللغتين، بين ال Old English وال New English. New English is most attached to us. وقبلها لما كانوا يقرؤون ال Old English, it was difficult for them as well, not just for us as learners, but for them as native speakers. It was hard to be understood. But with the 18th century novel, the language itself is modernized, so it is the same language of everyday language people are talking with. واضحة هاي النقطة مالت اللغة؟
نعم واضحة.
اوكي excellent. طبعا لحد الآن اكو طلاب جاي يطلبون انضمام، بس يعني راح يخلص وقت المحاضرة، وين كانوا؟ So I'm sorry, I want to accept them. Okay, let's just read some of the attendances and we will proceed later on. تبارك أسعد.
دكتورة.
اوكي، تبارك مصطفى.
نعم ست.
جمانة.
نعم دكتورة.
جنان مصطفى. جنان مصطفى.
نعم دكتورة.
اوكي، جيهان عضيد. جيهان عضيد. حسن أحمد.
نعم دكتورة موجودة.
اوكي اوكي. حسن عدنان. حسن محمد.
نعم دكتورة.
طيب، حسن محمد.
نعم دكتورة.
حسن محمد ناصر. حسن محمد ناصر. حنين حسين.
نعم دكتورة.
حنين علاء. حنين ماجد.
نعم دكتورة.
حنين علاء. أوكي. حوراء دريد. حوراء
نعم
عطية.
May I, Doctor?
Yes, of course, you may.
The reading public and the rise of novel.
Yes.
دكتورة راحت الشاشة. قصدي المادة.
بس بدي أعرف من اللي جاي يتكلم. أوكي. زينب مؤيد. Yes.
School for lower class was interment and limited. It was not necessary to learn books. Books were very expensive.
Yes.
Correcting libraries appear. The middle class grows, and there are more and more women readers. They read
Good.
mostly religious works. Readers of
Yes.
fiction are a different group. Readers of ridiculous to a miscellaneous taste, a mixture of improvement and entertainment.
Yes.
Booksellers achieved a strong financial standing and can influence authors who are there. Richardson was
commissioned by them. Johnson was promoted by them.
And the
Yes.
political laws favored prose and the constant rather than verse. This helps the novel. Writers are independent and not
oriented.
And as in the France, there is a lesser force of tradition.
Thank you very much. Okay, once again, who can read it? Thank you, Zainab Mu'ayyid.
May
Yes.
I?
Yes, you may. What's your name?
زهراء محمد سعيد.
زهراء محمد سعيد. Yes.
عايدها أستاذة؟
Yes, please. زهراء بس سؤال.
نعم.
أنت بوش أنت طالبة عندنا قبل؟
أي
لو هاي أول سنة.
لا كنت مرحلة أولى أول عام. العام أجلت.
يعني أنا ما مدرستش قبل.
لا ما مدرست.
أوكي تمام. أوكي يا زهراء.
Yeah. The reading public and the rise of the novel. School for the lower classes was intermittent and limited. It was not necessary to learn. Books were very expensive. Circulating libraries appear. The middle class grows, and there are more and more women readers. They read mostly religious works. Readers of fiction are a different group. Readers of period class to a miscellaneous taste, a mixture of improvement and entertainment. Booksellers achieve a strong financial standing and can influence others who are their employees. Richardson was commissioned by them. Johnson was promoted by them. The comical laws favor prose and captions rather than verse. This helps the novel writers are independent and not oriented in the court as friends. There is a laser force of tradition.
Okay, thank you very much. So, as the title includes, or the topic may say, reading public and rise of the novel. The reading public, one of the main reasons behind the rise of the novel, or the spread of the novel actually, because now we have so many readers, and I tried to highlight the important lines there. The circulating libraries appeared. So now you are not obliged to buy an expensive book, but instead you have to subscribe to any library with the fees, and you can have a book and read it, then get it back and have another one instead, and so on and so forth. So this is the circulating library. In addition to the middle class readers now are able to read, okay? and women readers are increasing as well. In addition to, even though there were so many people who are concerned with religious books and reading religious topics only, the readers of fiction are another group. And so now we have groups of readers unlike before. The other thing is that the booksellers now have the effect on the writers to write the way the ordinary people want. مثل ما قلت لكم قبل شوية إنه بالماضي كان الهاي كلاس people أو الأبر كلاس people هم اللي ينطون فلوس للكتاب حتى يكتبون، وبالمقابل لما أنا أنطي الكاتب فلوس حتى يكتب فبالتأكيد راح يكتب عني how to praise me، شلون يمدحني. but now الناس تشتري الكتب من المكتبة أو بياعين الكتب أو أصحاب المكتبات ياخذون هاي الفلوس وينطونها للكتاب حتى يكتبون عن الناس نفسهم. تمام؟ So as it is already mentioned here, Richardson was commissioned by the booksellers and Johnson was promoted by them. Okay? So the last and important idea is that writers are independent and not oriented to the court as in France. There is a lesser force of a tradition. نرجع نقول إنه writers صاروا free، يقدرون يكتبون اللي يردون يكتبونه، مو مثل قبل. ويا مثل إنه هو هنا مطي مثال للفرنسي لقرابة الفرنش Romans. Okay, but the truth is everything before the 18th century novel, it was attached to the court or to the church. Okay, now we've reached to the last topic. Who would like to read?
أقرأ دكتورة؟
Russell Day. Yes. Yes, please. What's your name?
أماني عذبي.
Amani?
أماني عذبي.
Okay. Amani Abdi. Yes, Amani. Please read. And I want you all to focus on this conclusion. To be more specific, this conclusion is the whole lecture. So if you can understand this conclusion, you are aware of the whole parts of the novel, of the lecture, sorry. Yes, please, Aman.
In conclusion, modern novel.
Yes.
In conclusion, modern novel began to develop during the 18th century. The term novel derives from the Latin novus and from the Italian novella. It was in opposition to the term romance, referring to the chivalric story in verse. It was used to refer to the prose fiction, which was new because it told stories about recent events. There were many causes which brought to the development of the novel.
Yes.
Expansion of the reading public.
Yes.
Growth of a new middle class. Different position of women. Economic reasons. People who were richer than before could afford to buy books, and women had more time to read because after the Industrial Revolution, they had much free time at home. They could buy in shops. They could buy in shops the products which before were homemade in the houses.
Yes.
Publishing became a profitable business thanks to the spread of literacy and of reading as a form of entertainment among the wealthy middle class.
Yes.
The professional writers began to appear. They did not have rich patrons, but earned their living by writing essays and books. This new situation, together with the creation of the circulating libraries, which borrowed books in return of a small subscription fee, increase the number of readers, yet the number of those who could afford buying books was very small, and there was still widespread literacy. The masses gained the masses gained widespread
أماني.
illiteracy.
Yes, good.
Illiteracy. The masses gained a low salary and books were still very expensive to buy.
Good.
There was no real public education system yet. Poor children had little opportunities to study since they were used to as industrial laborers, and a huge number of people could neither read nor write.
Good. Very good.
كمان?
Yes, yes, proceed.
The 18th century novel is labeled as realistic novel. The characters were real people. The characters were real people with ordinary names and surnames. They were described in their daily routines. The setting were real geographical places, and the content were taken from real stories. Unlike the early Augustans, the novelists liked to write about ordinary people.
Yes.
Acting ordinary people acting in real life situation. The novelists try to meet their middle class readers who wanted to read about ordinary people because they enjoyed seeing themselves as
protagonists of the story. Good.
Of the story.
They were
the ones who bought the books, and consequently, the author's point of view was the same as the reader's one.
Good.
The most important novelists of the time were Daniel Defoe, Jonathan Swift, Samuel Richardson, Harry Fielding, and Lawrence Stern.
Okay.
Some of the
that's it. Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Amani. Very good reading. Okay. And now I want another one. Who can read?
May I?
Okay. Yes, you may. The two ladies. The first one, what's your name?
Asma Kadhim.
Asma Kadhim. What about the other one?
زينب ماجد.
Zainab Majid. Okay, Asma, start please. And later, Zainab, you will proceed after her, okay? Yes, Asma.
In conclusion, modern novel began to develop during the 18th century.
Yes.
Term novel derives from the Latin novels and from the Italian novella.
Okay.
It was opposition to the
in opposition to the term romance.
To the term romance.
Yes.
Referring to developed story. In verse, it was used to refer
to a prose
fiction, which was new because it told stories about recurrent events.
About recent events.
There were many causes which brought to the
development of the novel.
Expansion.
Number one.
Expansion of the reading public.
Okay.
Growth of the new middle classes, different position of women.
Yes.
Economic
reasons.
Economic reason people who were richer than before could afford buying.
Yes.
تغيرت الصورة.
Sorry.
وين وصلت؟ خربطت. Buying books, and women had more time for reading because after the industrial revolution, they had much very free time at home. They could they they could buy in shops.
Okay, Asma, thank you.
كنت بكره.
Okay, thank you very much, Asma. Very good job. Thank you,
You're
Asma.
welcome.
Yes, Zainab Majid.
They could buy in shops the product. They had much free time at home. They could buy in the shops, become a profitable business thanks to the spread of literacy and of reading as a form of entertainment among the wealthy middle class.
Okay.
The professional writers began to appear. They
Began.
began
Yes.
to appear. They did not have rich patrons, but earned their living by writing essays and books. This is a new situation, together with the creating to uh, ci-
Circulating libraries.
libraries which
Libraries. Yes.
borrowed the books in return of a small subscription fee.
Yes.
Increases the numbers of readers, yet the number of those who could afford buying books was very small, and there was still widespread literacy. The message gained a low salary, and books were still very expensive to buy. There was no real public education system yet.
Education system yet. Education.
Education system yet.
Yes.
Both children had little opportunities to study since they were used at industrial uh, libraries
Libraries.
libraries, and a huge number of people could neither read nor write.
Okay, thank you very much, Zainab. Yes, who can read the last two paragraphs?
Can I?
Of course you can. What's your name?
Riyam Ahmed.
Riyam Ahmed. Yes, Riyam.
The 18th century novel is labeled as a realistic novel.
Realistic novel.
Realistic novel.
Yes.
The characters were real people with ordinary names and surnames. They were described in their daily routines.
Yes.
The setting were rate
Geographical places.
Geographical places, and the contents were taken from real stores. Unlike the early Augustines, the novelists like to write about ordinary people acting in real life situations. The novels tried to meet their middle class readers who wanted to read about ordinary people because they enjoyed seeing themes, uh, themselves are protagonists of stories. They were the ones who bought the books, and consequently the others point of view was the same as the reader's one. The
Good.
most important novelists of the time were Daniel Defoe,
Jonathan Swift.
John Swift, Samuel Richardson.
اخذي نفس. ريام اخذي نفس ارجع اقريهم.
نعم. دانيال ديفور، جوناثان سويفت، سامويل ريتشاردسون، هنري فيلدينج and لورنس
Stern. Thank you very much. Thank you, Ryan. That's enough. Thank you very much. Thanks. So, according to your colleagues already read paragraphs, I think now it's very clear for you the most important ideas. First of all, the modern novel, the term novel is derived from the Latin word novus and from the Italian novella. Okay, it was in opposition to the term romance. قبل شوية حكينا عنها شنو الرومانس وشنو قصدنا بالرومانس. اوكي، والشيفارليك ستوري سولفنا فيها. بعدين نبدأ إلى تطور الرواية مثل ما واضح عندنا هنا. Development of the novel. Number one, expansion of the reading public, growth of a new middle class, different position of women, and economic reasons. طبعا expansion of reading public هو يعود إلى الفضل إلى circulating libraries. هاي رقم واحد. رقم اثنين, growth of a new middle class بسبب industrial revolution. Okay. قبل industrial revolution كان يا إما upper class أو lower class. upper class هم high monarchs and their relatives. low class هم all the workers in general, farmers and workers. After the industrial revolution, there was a growth of a new class that is called the middle class. فصار عندنا ثلاثة, upper و middle و lower. الميدل كلاس هم workers in general بالindustry. okay, وهذول were kind of richer than the lower class. lower class ظلوا مثل ما هم, اللي هم الفارمرز بصورة عامة, حتى أحوالهم المعيشية ساءت أكثر من قبل. لكن الميدل كلاس هم اللي هم هذول اللي جاي نحكي عليهم growth of a new middle class. هو هذه الفئة اللي صارت تشتغل وبنفس الوقت عندها ماني حتى تقدر تشتري books. Different position of women. قبل هذه الفترة النساء were either nurses or housewives, no more than that. But after the industrial revolution, now they are able to educate themselves, to work, to have different positions in society, though it's still a conservative society. بعد مجتمع محافظ, لكن إلى حد ما أصبح للمرأة دور أكبر, لا سيما وإنه بعد الإندستريال ريفوليوشن صار عندها فراغ أكثر. قبل كل شيء تشتغله هاند ميد, بعدها لا, إنه أكو أشياء صارت تجي جاهزة من برا فما تحتاج تشتغل, فصار أكو فري تايم حتى تقرأ. بالإضافة إلى الإيكونوميك reasons اللي ذكرناها قبل شوية. Publishing became a profitable business, and thanks to the spread of literacy and the reading as form of entertainment among the wealthy middle class. Publishing إلى دور كلش كبير, ونرجع نقول مرة ثانية إنه because of booksellers publishing, now people are reading about themselves and buying books to read about themselves as well. The circulating libraries added an additional important reason for the spread of the 18th century novel, and I want you to highlight and focus on this paragraph 100%. The 18th century novel is labeled as a realistic novel. The characters were real people with ordinary names and surnames. They were described in their daily routines. The settings were real geographical places, and the contents were taken from real stories. The novelists like to write about ordinary people acting in real life situations. كل محاضرتنا حكينا هواية عن الريالستيك نوفل وعن الرياليزم حتى نوصل لهاي الكونكلوجن إنه الكاركترز were real people with ordinary names والsettings were real geographical places and the contents were taken from real stories. واضحة؟ يحتاج أعيدها بعد؟
واضحة.
أوكي أتمنى البقية هم تكون واضحة بالنسبة لهم. النوفلست try to meet their middle class readers. هم ذكرنا قبل شوية إنه الكتاب سابقا كانوا يكتبون للهاي كلاس إن هم اللي يعطوهم فلوس. أما هسه فتغير الوضع because the middle class readers are those who are buying the books. So the writers were meeting their readers through writing about them. And especially both of them have the same point of view, or both of them are focusing on the same social issues, the same political issues in society. Is that clear? The foremost and pioneer writers are Daniel Defoe, Jonathan Swift, Samuel Richardson, Henry Fielding, and Lawrence Stern. بالنسبة لنا قلنا خلال المحاضرة إنه كانت the first true English novel هي first true English novel. نحدد English novel هي by Daniel Defoe Adventures of Robinson Crusoe. وعلى هذا الأساس راح ندرس المحاضرة الجاية إن شاء الله. راح نبدي who's Robinson Crusoe who is Daniel Defoe, who's Robinson Crusoe, the plot summary of Robinson Crusoe and the main characters within this novel. أنا راح أنطيكم handout. طبعا راح أحاول أسوي على شكل PDF أنزله هنا بالكلاس روم، وإن شاء الله راح يكون موجود بالمكتبة همين إذا قدرت أروح الأحد أو الاثنين. يوم الاثنين أروح الكلية أنطيها المكتبة. ما أعرف أنتوا ويا أي مكتبة تتعاملون but I prefer أبو زينب. ما أعرف أعتقد اسمها المعارف.
نعم أبو زينب.
أوكي فراح تكون هناك الهاند أوت تستلمونها حتى براحتكم إذا تريدون تقرون أونلاين أو تريدون تاخذون هذا السورس وتقرون به. بكل الأحوال النص أرجع وأكرر النص يا أما تقرونه أونلاين يا أما تجيبون الكتاب من مكتبة أبو زينب. النص يختلف عن السورس اللي راح نعطيكم إياه. المصدر طبعا أنتم متعودين أن تسمونه ملزمة بس إحنا ما ناخذ ملازم، إحنا ناخذ مقاطع من مصادر. فالمصدر اللي أنا راح أعطيكم إياه راح نعتمد عليه بالامتحان. هذا يختلف عن النص. ركزوا النص هي القصة نفسها اللي نقرأ من عندها. المصدر هو التحليل والنقاط اللي نركز عليها بالنص. فالمصدر راح يكون موجود بالمكتبة. النص it's up to you كيفكم تريدون تشترونه تريدون تقرونه أونلاين وياي براحتكم. واضح؟
واضح دكتور.
Okay, so this is all for today. Just wait a second just to take the attendance again by taking pictures. A second, please. أكو شيء بالمحاضرة ما كان واضح؟
لا دكتور عشان
أكو شيء يحتاج نعيد المحاضرة الجاية؟
العفو دكتور، بس المظلة الأول صفحة بس أريد ناخذ له سكرين.
أوكي
المادة المظللة أول صفحة بس.
أوكي واضحة هسه؟
يس دكتورة.
أوكي إذا أي ملاحظة ما واضحة عندكم، أي باراجراف ما كان واضح، تقدرون تكتبوا لي بالكومنت اللي كان موجود بالميت الميت لينك، وعلى مود نعيده المحاضرة الجاية. تمام؟
تمام.
This is all for today, and thank you very much for your attendance. See you next week, inshallah.
See you next week. Have a
Thank
good
you,
day.
Doctor. Good
Most
day.
welcome. Have a good day to you too. Bye bye.